Blindfolded, zip-tied, and terrified, Madeline was thrown onto the cold marble floor. "Boss, we messed up. We grabbed the heavy one, not the model," a gruff voice stammered. Footsteps approached. A deep, chilling voice echoed through the room. "No, gentlemen. She is exactly who I wanted." Rain lashed against the display windows of sugar and spice confections in downtown Chicago. Madeline Hayes wiped her flour-dusted hands on her apron, letting out a long, exhausted sigh. At 220 pounds, standing 5'4", Madeline was used to being the invisible workhorse. She was the one who baked the 3-tiered fondant masterpieces, while her glamorous, size 2 stepsister, Savannah Mercer, was the one who attended the galas to eat them. Savannah was a socialite, an influencer who spent her days taking selfies at the Peninsula Hotel and her nights mingling with men whose bank accounts were as dangerous as their reputations. Madeline, on the other hand, preferred the quiet predictability of her kitchen. Her life was a comforting routine of butter, sugar, and ledgers. But tonight, that routine was about to be violently shattered. Shivering as the wind howled through Wicker Park, Madeline realized she had forgotten her umbrella. Worse, she had left her sensible fleece jacket at home. The only outerwear hanging on the employee rack was a vibrant crimson trench coat, a designer piece Savannah had discarded at the bakery 2 days ago after complaining it smelled like yeast. With the temperature dropping rapidly, Madeline had no choice. She slipped the red coat over her broad shoulders. It was tight across her chest and hips, refusing to button properly, but it offered a layer of defense against the biting Illinois chill. She locked the heavy glass doors of the bakery, the neon sign flickering out, and stepped onto the slick pavement. That was her first mistake. A sleek black Cadillac Escalade, its windows tinted so darkly they looked like obsidian, idled ominously near the alleyway. Madeline barely registered it. Her mind was on the spreadsheet she needed to finish for the bakery's taxes and the leftover slice of red velvet cake waiting in her fridge. Suddenly, the heavy thud of car doors opening cut through the sound of the rain. Heavy boots splashed in the puddles behind her. "Hey, grab the girl in the red coat," a harsh voice barked. Before Madeline could even turn her head, a thick, calloused hand clamped over her mouth. The smell of stale leather, cheap cologne, and wet wool invaded her senses. She tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the man's palm. Another pair of arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her off her feet. "Damn, Vinny. She's heavier than she looks in the photos," the man holding her legs grunted, struggling under her weight. "Just get her in the van. The boss said the red coat. Move!" Vinny snapped back. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced Madeline's chest. She kicked wildly, her sensible, non-slip work shoes connecting with a shin. Someone cursed loudly in Italian. She threw her weight to the side, a tactic she had read about in a self-defense article once, causing the man holding her legs to stumble and drop her knees onto the hard asphalt. Pain flared, but she didn't stop fighting. "Hold her still!" a third voice yelled from inside the vehicle. A rough canvas sack was shoved over her head, plunging her into suffocating darkness. Thick plastic zip ties bit into her wrists as they were wrenched behind her back. With one final coordinated heave, the men tossed her onto the floorboards of the SUV. The doors slammed shut, sealing her in with her captors. The engine roared, and the tires squealed against the wet road. Tears streamed down Madeline's face beneath the scratchy fabric of the bag. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. "This is a mistake," she thought frantically. "They think I'm Savannah." Savannah was the one who owed money. Savannah was the one who dated men with questionable connections and mysterious wealth. In the front seat, The men were arguing in hushed, panicked tones. "I'm telling you, Rocco, this ain't the girl," the one named Vinny hissed. "Did you feel the weight of her? Savannah Mercer is a runway model. She's 90 pounds soaking wet. The girl in the back is, well, she's a big girl." "She was wearing the red coat, Vinny," Rocco argued, his voice tight with anxiety. The intel said 10 p.m., stepping out of the bakery, wearing the red designer coat. We followed the instructions to the letter. Instructions or no instructions, when Mr. DeLuca pulls that hood off and sees a chubby baker instead of his collateral, he's going to put a bullet in both our heads. We grabbed the wrong sister. Madeline froze, her breath catching in her throat. Mr. DeLuca. Gabriel DeLuca. The name was whispered in Chicago's elite circles like a ghost story. He was a shadow, a ruthless businessman who controlled the city's ports, real estate, and underground casinos. Savannah had bragged about meeting him at a charity gala, laughing about how she had managed to charm her way into his VIP circle. Savannah had also casually mentioned borrowing $500,000 from one of his associates for a business venture that had mysteriously evaporated. "We can't turn back now," Rocco muttered, tapping the steering wheel frantically. "We're already on the highway. We just explain the mix-up. We tell him the coat threw us off. We can use her as leverage to get the skinny one." Madeline squeezed her eyes shut. The humiliation burned almost as much as her chafed wrists. Even in the middle of a violent kidnapping, she was reduced to the big girl, the wrong sister, the disappointing punchline to Savannah's glamorous life. She lay there on the vibrating floor of the SUV, the smell of exhaust fumes making her nauseous, praying for a way to survive the night. The drive felt like an eternity. The hum of the tires changed from smooth highway asphalt to the crunch of a graveled driveway. The vehicle slowed and finally came to a halt. Doors opened, letting in the damp night air. Rough hands grabbed Madeline by the shoulders, hauling her upright. Her knees, bruised and aching from the struggle in the alley, buckled slightly, but a firm grip kept her on her feet. She was marched forward, her leather shoes clicking against what sounded like stone steps, then moving onto expensive thick carpets. The ambient temperature changed, wrapping her in a luxurious, cedar-scented warmth. The muffled sounds of classical music, Chopin maybe, drifted through the air. "Down!" Rocco ordered, forcing her to her knees. The cold shock of marble seeped through her slacks. She heard the distinct, terrifying sound of heavy oak doors closing behind them, sealing her fate. "Mr. DeLuca," Vinny's voice trembled. It lacked all the bravado it had possessed in the SUV. "We brought the package, but... Sir, there's been a complication." Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and echoing with power. The clicking of expensive leather shoes against the marble floor sent shivers down Madeline's spine. The man stopped just a few feet in front of her. She could hear the faint clinking of ice in a crystal glass. "A complication, Vincent?" The voice was a dark velvet purr, rich and terrifyingly calm. "I despise complications. I gave you explicit instructions." "We know, boss. We swear." Rocco chimed in, sounding desperate. "We waited at the bakery. The target walked out at exactly 10 o'clock. She was wearing the red coat you described. We made the grab. But in the dark, with the rain, remove the hood," Gabriel ordered softly. Rough hands yanked the canvas sack off Madeline's head. She gasped, the sudden brightness of the room blinding her for a moment. She blinked rapidly, her vision clearing to reveal a sprawling, opulent study. Walls lined with first-edition books, a massive mahogany desk, and a roaring fireplace that cast flickering shadows across the room. and standing before her was Gabriel De Luca. He was devastatingly handsome, but in a harsh, unforgiving way. Sharp jawline, dark hair combed back with meticulous care, and eyes the color of a stormy sea. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that commanded authority. He held a glass of amber liquid, looking down at her with an unreadable expression. Madeleine felt deeply conscious of how she looked. Her hair, normally pinned up in a neat bun, was a frizzy, tangled mess from the sack. Her face was bare of makeup, flushed and tear-stained. The red trench coat gaped open, revealing her flour-stained apron and sensible black work clothes stretching across her thick thighs and wide hips. She had never felt so painfully out of place, so entirely inadequate compared to the sleek, polished world of Savannah Mercer. "Boss," Vinny stepped forward, swallowing hard. "We messed up. We grabbed the heavy one, not the model. This is the sister. The chubby one. We can fix this. We'll lock her in the basement, take the van back out, and track down Savannah tonight. We'll make it right." Madeleine braced herself for his fury. She expected a backhand, a string of curses, or a gun drawn. She closed her eyes, preparing for the violent reality of being the wrong hostage. Instead, a low, rumbling sound vibrated through the room. It took Madeleine a second to realize Gabriel De Luca was laughing. It wasn't a warm laugh. It was a dark, amused chuckle that made the hair on her arms stand up. "Rocco." "Vincent," Gabriel said, taking a slow sip of his bourbon. He stepped closer, towering over Madeleine. He crouched down, moving with the fluid grace of a predator until he was at eye level with her. He smelled of bergamot, expensive tobacco, and danger. "Yes, Mr. De Luca?" Rocco squeaked. Gabriel reached out, his large, warm hand lightly brushing a stray curl away from Madeleine's tear-stained cheek. She flinched, but his touch was shockingly gentle. He looked deep into her panicked eyes, a terrifying smirk playing on his lips. "You didn't mess anything up," Gabriel said, never breaking eye contact with Madeleine. "No, gentlemen. She is exactly what I wanted." Silence descended on the room, so thick it could be cut with a knife. Vinny and Rocco exchanged bewildered glances. "But, sir," Vinny stammered, "Savannah Mercer is the one who owes the 500 grand. Savannah is the one who stole the flash drive from the offshore accounts." "Savannah Mercer is a vacuous idiot," Gabriel stated coldly, his eyes still locked on Madeleine. She couldn't encrypt a flash drive if her miserable life depended on it. She was merely the messenger, the real brains of the family, the one who meticulously manages the accounts for that quaint little bakery, the one who unwittingly buried my encrypted offshore ledger into the bakery's tax software to hide it for her sister. Gabriel trailed off, his smirk widening. He let his gaze drag down Madeleine's body, not with disgust, but with a predatory, intense hunger that made her breath hitch. "Leave us," Gabriel commanded, without looking back at his men. "But boss, she's tied up. She might—" "I said, leave us." The tone left no room for argument. Rocco and Vincent practically tripped over themselves to exit the room, the heavy oak doors slamming shut behind them. The click of the lock echoed like a gunshot. Madeleine was alone with the monster of Chicago. "You're trembling, mia dolce," Gabriel murmured, setting his glass on a nearby side table. He reached behind her. She tensed, expecting him to strike, but instead she felt the sharp snip of a pocket knife. The plastic zip ties snapped, freeing her wrists. Agony rushed into her hands as circulation returned, and she instinctively brought them to her chest, rubbing the angry red marks. "Why?" Madeline finally found her voice. It was raspy and weak, but she forced herself to look at him. "If you wanted the drive, why not just break into the bakery? Why kidnap me? I didn't know what Savannah put on that computer. I swear to you, I'm just a baker." "I know exactly who you are, Madeline Hayes," Gabriel said, standing up and walking behind his desk. He opened a drawer and tossed a thick, leather-bound file onto the mahogany surface. It fell open. Madeline gasped. Pinned inside the folder were dozens of photographs. Not of Savannah, of her. Madeline laughing with a customer at the bakery. Madeline sitting on a park bench in Wicker Park, eating a croissant. Madeline walking in the rain. There were notes, too. Her coffee order at Intelligentsia, a large oat milk latte with 2 pumps of vanilla. The exact time she closed the shop. "I've been watching you for 3 months, Gabriel confessed, his voice dropping an octave. "Savannah thought she was playing me, using my money to fund her lifestyle. But when I sent my men to watch her, to figure out where she hid my digital assets, they found you. The quiet, overlooked sister, keeping everything from falling apart." He walked back around the desk, stopping just inches from where she still knelt on the floor. "They called you the wrong girl," Gabriel scoffed softly, offering his hand to help her stand. "They called you heavy. They are fools who only look at the surface. I look at the substance. Savannah is a brittle piece of glass. You, Madeline, you are an empire waiting to be built, and I have grown incredibly tired of watching you from the shadows." Madeline stared at his offered hand, her heart caught in a violent tug-of-war between sheer terror and a strange, intoxicating thrill. The most dangerous man in the city didn't want the supermodel sister. He wanted her. Hesitantly, with trembling fingers, Madeline placed her hand in Gabriel's. His grip was firm, calloused, and surprisingly grounding. He pulled her to her feet, his sheer size dwarfing her. Yet for the first time in her life, Madeline didn't feel like she was taking up too much space. She felt anchored. Gabriel guided her toward a plush velvet armchair near the roaring fireplace, gently pushing her down by her shoulders. He poured a glass of water from a crystal pitcher, handing it to her before taking a seat in the chair opposite. "Breathe, Madeline," he instructed, his tone devoid of the terrifying edge he had used with his men. "You are safe here. My men are fools, but they are loyal. They won't touch you again." Madeline took a shaky sip, the cool water soothing her dry throat. "I don't understand," she whispered, clutching the glass with both hands. "Savannah owes you money. You said she hid an encrypted ledger in my bakery's tax software. But why stalk me? Why not just demand the password?" Gabriel leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Because Savannah didn't just hide a ledger, Madeline. She tried to frame you for grand larceny against the Chicago syndicate." The glass almost slipped from Madeline's fingers. "What?" "2 weeks ago, $3 million vanished from a Delaware shell corporation registered under Carmichael & Sons Wealth Management. A front for my organization," Gabriel explained, his stormy eyes hardening. "My cybersecurity team traced the digital footprint. The IP address pinged directly to the back-office computer at Sugar and Spice Confections. The user login was registered to Madeline Hayes. Madeline's blood ran cold. The late nights Savannah had spent at the bakery, keeping her company while she frosted cakes, suddenly made horrific sense. Savannah hadn't been scrolling through social media. She had been using Madeline's credentials to siphon Mafia funds. "She set you up to take the fall," Gabriel continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "She transferred the money to an offshore account with Banque Pictet and CA in Geneva. She thought I would send my men to silence the baker, leaving her free to flee to Europe with my money. But your sister is arrogant, and arrogance breeds sloppiness." "You knew," Madeline choked out, hot tears of betrayal pricking her eyes. "You knew it wasn't me." "I knew the moment I started watching you," Gabriel said softly. "I saw a woman who worked 14-hour shifts, who stressed over the cost of vanilla bean extract, who gave her leftover pastries to the homeless man on Milwaukee Avenue. You are a woman of profound integrity, Madeline. Savannah is a parasite. When I realized what she had done, my objective changed. I didn't just want my money back. I wanted the woman who possessed the intellect to unknowingly harbor a criminal empire's ledger." Before Madeline could process the weight of his confession, the heavy oak doors of the study burst open. Rocco and Vinny dragged a thrashing, screaming woman into the room. It was Savannah. She was drenched from the rain, her expensive silk dress plastered to her rail-thin frame, her perfect blowout ruined. "Get your filthy hands off me!" Savannah shrieked, kicking her designer heels at Rocco's shins. "Do you know who I am? I am a personal friend of Mr. DeLuca." Gabriel stood up, towering over the room. The silence that followed was immediate and suffocating. Savannah looked up, her panicked eyes landing on Gabriel, then darting to Madeline sitting comfortably by the fire. Confusion, followed by pure venom, contorted her beautiful face. "Maddie, what the hell are you doing here?" Savannah spat, trying to wrench her arms free. "Gabriel, darling, there's been a mistake. This fat cow is my stepsister. She's nobody. You don't want her." Gabriel didn't yell. He didn't pull a weapon. He simply walked toward Savannah with the slow, deliberate pacing of an apex predator. When he stopped in front of her, the temperature in the room seemed to plummet. "You will never speak of her that way again," Gabriel whispered, the lethal calmness in his voice making even Vinny step back. "Your sister is the only reason you are currently breathing." Savannah scoffed, though her lip trembled. "She's a baker, Gabriel. She's useless. I'm the one who can get you what you want. I have the money. We can make a deal." "The money is already gone, Savannah," Madeline spoke up. Her own voice surprised her. It was steady, stripped of the usual meekness she carried around her sister. Savannah whipped her head around. "Shut up, Maddie. You don't know anything." "Actually, I do." Madeline stood up, smoothing down her wrinkled slacks. She looked at Gabriel. "The tax software. I use a double authentication encryption for my payroll. If Savannah hid your ledger inside my files, she triggered the firewall. The moment she tried to route the Bank Picteri transfer through my server, my system flagged it as an anomaly." Gabriel raised an eyebrow, a flicker of genuine admiration crossing his features. "Go on." "I thought it was a malware virus," Madeline admitted, a small, confident smile touching her lips. "So I quarantined the file and locked it under a master key that only I possess. Savannah didn't transfer your $3 million to Switzerland. She transferred it into a dead-end ghost folder on my local hard drive. She's broke. And she's locked out." Savannah's face drained of all color. No, that's impossible. The screen said the transfer was complete." "It was a spoof screen, Savannah," Madeline said coldly. "I'm a fat baker, yes, but I also have a master's degree in accounting." Gabriel let out a dark, booming laugh that rattled the windows. He looked at Savannah with utter disgust. "Take her to the holding cells," he ordered his men. "Let her think about how a useless baker just outsmarted her." "No, Gabriel! Maddie, please!" Savannah screamed as Rocco and Vinny hauled her out of the room, her cries echoing down the marble hallway until the heavy doors slammed shut. The silence in the study was palpable. Madeline stood by the fire, her heart hammering, suddenly hyper-aware of the massive shift in her reality. She had just condemned her own sister to a Mafia holding cell. Yet looking into the flames, she felt an overwhelming sense of liberation. "You never cease to amaze me, Mia Regina," Gabriel said softly, stepping up behind her. The heat radiating from his chest warmed her back. "My queen," Madeline translated quietly, looking over her shoulder. "You're delusional if you think I belong in this world, Gabriel. I bake cupcakes. I'm soft. I'm heavy." Gabriel reached out, his large hands resting on her wide hips. He didn't squeeze or pinch. He held her with a reverence that made Madeline's breath catch. He turned her around so she was facing him. "Softness is a luxury in my world, Madeline," Gabriel murmured, his eyes dropping to her lips. "I am surrounded by sharp edges, by brittle, hollow people like your sister. I don't want bones. I don't want a woman who starves herself to fit into a society I intend to burn down." He stepped closer, closing the distance between them. His hands slid up her waist, tracing the deep curve of her silhouette. "I want a woman who takes up space," he declared, his voice thick with desire. "A woman who isn't afraid of her own appetite. You are brilliant. You are ruthless when you need to be. And you are breathtakingly beautiful." For the first time in 26 years, Madeline believed it. The ensuing months were a whirlwind that completely rewrote the hierarchy of the Chicago underworld. Madeline decrypted the files, seamlessly returning Gabriel's $3 million. But she didn't stop there. Using her meticulous accounting skills, she audited Gabriel's legitimate fronts, legally laundering his assets through a new, sprawling culinary empire. Sugar and Spice Confections was closed down. In its place, under the glowing lights of the Magnificent Mile, arose the Velvet Crumb, a massive 3-story bakery, restaurant, and speakeasy. Madeline was the CEO, running the legitimate front of the DeLuca family with an iron fist and a perfectly piped buttercream. Savannah was eventually released, but not before Gabriel's lawyers stripped her of every cent she owned, blacklisted her from every elite circle in the city, and left her to work a minimum-wage retail job in the suburbs to pay off her debt. One rainy evening, exactly a year after the kidnapping, Madeline sat in the private, soundproof office above the Velvet Crumb. She was reviewing the quarterly projections for the DeLuca syndicate, a plate of warm chocolate croissants resting on her desk. She wore a tailored, emerald green dress that hugged every one of her lush curves perfectly. The door clicked open, and Gabriel stepped in. He shed his wet coat, locking the door behind him. His eyes instantly fell on her, darkening with that familiar, possessive hunger. "You're working late," he noted, walking over and lifting a croissant from the plate. "Just finishing the laundering routes for the new casino," Madeline replied, leaning back in her plush leather chair. "Everything is clean, flawless." Gabriel took a bite of the pastry, his eyes never leaving hers. He walked around the desk, pulling her chair out, and hoisted her up by her waist. He sat down, settling her firmly onto his lap. Madeline wrapped her arms around his broad shoulders, burying her face in the crook of his neck, inhaling the scent of bergamot and danger that she had come to love. "My beautiful, brilliant girl," Gabriel whispered, kissing the soft, plump flesh of her neck. His hands roamed possessively over her thighs. They thought they kidnapped the wrong sister. Madeline smirked, trailing her manicured nails down his chest. "And what do you think, boss?" Gabriel captured her lips in a deep, bruising kiss that promised a long, wicked night. When he finally pulled away, his stormy eyes burned with absolute devotion. "I think," Gabriel rasped, "I got exactly what I wanted." Wow, what a thrilling ride. If Madeline's incredible journey from an overlooked baker to a fierce mafia queen kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. Don't forget to share this story with your friends who love a spicy romance with a dramatic twist. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you never miss out on our daily stories. Drop a comment below. What would you do if you were Madeline?